Ba-do-ba-da-do. Ba-do-ba-da-do. Lesson 1-3, subtracting integers. Again, we can see that's in our standard. One of the things we're going to be doing here, we're going to be subtracting rational numbers, which does include other things. But for this chapter, just integers, which are our vocab, positive and negative whole numbers. Let's take a look at that. If you've been around, Mr. Walls might have done a lab where we kind of talked about how we can subtract using those algebra tiles, but today we're just not going to do that. Today, when we see subtraction, we're going to do this. We're going to say, don't subtract, add the opposite. Could you put a bubble cloud around it? I'm going to use smiley faces because it's going to make life a little bit easier so you can be happy to see it. Happy, happy, happy. Don't subtract, add the opposite. In that, though, please underline add. And then this word opposite, go ahead and underline it a lot. I've been doing it sideways because I want to emphasize it so much. Because in class, I'm going to say the phrase, don't subtract, and then I have the class respond, add the opposite. But it's very, 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 very important that we remember the word opposite. That's the important part for today. So when you hear me, I'm going to say, don't subtract. You say, add the opposite. Let's try it. Don't subtract. If you said it, great. If not, I'll be given a blank spot there as well for us to say it, just like we would in class. Then down here, the hint says to rewrite the problem, meaning we are just going to switch subtraction to adding the opposite. What are we talking about? Let's take a look. Now, sometimes we can get subtraction. We can see this 8 minus 10 and get it and know the answer. But other times, we don't always get it right depending on whether it's positive or negative, this, that, or the other. So we have that phrase from before where we're going to say, don't subtract. Correct. Add the opposite. So that means switch this to adding. That's how I'm going to make it adding. And then immediately after that, what is the opposite of this number here? What's the opposite of a positive 10? It's a negative 10. Now we can add those. Since one is positive and one is negative, whether you want to think like we did before in lesson 2, which many are mastery, you're at that level 3 where you say, I can add integers. Whether you want to think chips, or counters where there are 8 positives and then there are 10 negatives, those types of things there. Or you want to talk about money, where you bring $8 to school and you owe me $10. Owing Mr. Wall's money is a negative thing. Which one has more? The negatives by how much? 2. So your answer is negative 2. That was us rewriting the problem. Down here, again, leave this first number alone. This is just a negative. But when you see this guy right here, subtraction, nope, don't subtract. That's where you say add the opposite if you didn't. So again, what is the opposite of a positive 9? It's a negative 9, so sneak that negative in there. Since they're both negative, we add them together, and it stays negative. You borrow money from me on this first day, then you borrow money again, you still owe me money, you get a negative $16 because owing Mr. Wall's money is a negative thing. Again, subtraction comes in all types and forms up here on the top. When we see that, again, here in this parentheses, all we're doing right here, that parentheses is there to remind us that that 6 is negative. So when you see subtraction, ignore this first one. That's just a negative sign. But this one right here, say, subtraction, don't subtract. Add the opposite. So adding, and then what is the opposite immediately after that? What is the opposite of a negative 6? It is a positive 6. So to make that a positive 6, I just write it like that because I can't erase that negative sign. If you'd rather rewrite the whole thing to negative 3 plus a positive 6, you're welcome to do that. Again, here we see they have different signs. Which one's got more? Which one has a larger absolute value? The 6 does by how much? 6 minus 3 gives us 3. Since that 6 is positive, you'll have a positive 3 as an answer. Down here in the bottom right, oh no, there's so many problems. No. Just take it one at a time. When you see subtraction, when you see it right here, we say don't subtract. Did you say it? Did you say add the opposite? If not, we have to remember that. Don't subtract, add the opposite. What is the opposite of a negative 20? It's positive 20. Continue down. Are there any other subtractions? There is another subtraction right here. So switch that. Don't subtract, add the opposite. What's the opposite of this? Positive 20. That's a negative 20. Again, if you need to rewrite it, please, by all means, that's 15 plus a positive 20 plus a negative 20. In class, we talk about it, but if not, right here, take them two at a time, add those together. They're both positive. That gives you 35 plus a negative 20. Don't lose that negative sign. Since the positives have more or has a larger absolute value, that's going to give you the final answer of 15. Again, today you might have to go off to the side and do some math. That's fine. We're doing this without a calculator because the standard says I can, not with technology. It says I can add and subtract. So we're going to do that again here, doing that. The correct order, 5 minus 0 is 5, 3 minus 2 is 1, so you get that 15. In class, I'd ask if there's another way, but here to keep videos fast and rolling, we have these two guys right here, a positive 20 and a negative 20. They are called opposites or additive inverses. When you see those, by all means, you can just show that work like we did right there, adding them all up or adding them, writing out all this work here, and then because they are opposites, you can just cross them out. Because they're additive inverses, they come out to 0. And the only thing left is that 15, which was our final answer. Why are we doing this? Because our scale, again, we want to be able to say that you can subtract rational numbers. Even though it says subtract, we're today noticing that, subtraction, it's a lot easier if we say don't subtract, add the opposite. We're doing that with integers, and we'll see all those things over there. Again, those skills that we want to be able to understand those concepts. We talk about this. I got a couple of these on the assignment, at least the one that I normally give. A penguin was on an ice cap 10 feet above the water, then dove into a depth of 16 feet. Find the change in height. Please, on this one, right away, write on in this note. End minus the start. No matter what you do, you will always get the right answer if you go from the end and subtract the start. You don't need to draw the picture in. If you want to, you can. I just draw it in so we can kind of see it. That is my best looking penguin right there. Thank you very much. He is 10 feet above the water, which I will use this blue highlighter to represent that. And then that penguin dives into the water to a depth of 16 feet. As a reminder, when we see that note up here to a depth of 16 feet, he goes below water. What type of number represents going below water or below sea level? That would be a negative 16 feet. Where are you at? Now you can take these two numbers. You can take your 10 and 16 and you can do math with them and get the right number, but whether it's positive or negative, you'll always have to go back and look at the context of the problem. That's why if we take and we use this end minus the start, we'll always get the right answer. Let's do it right away. The end, where did that penguin end at? Negative 16 minus where it started, the 10 feet. Ha. Now here we go again. When we see these, we say don't subtract, add the opposite. So switch that to adding. And the opposite would be that. We take the negative 16 plus the negative 10 to give us a negative 26. Find the change in height. Wants a label, negative 26 feet. Again, pause for a moment. This is where you'd want to be looking at context. You can get 26 or you can get a negative 26. The 26 is correct. But now notice, when you read the word problem, go back to the context. Since it started on the ice cap 10 feet above, the penguin ended up going down. Since the penguin's position change was going down, we've said it before, the going down represents what type of number? Because he's going down, our overall change needs to be a negative number. So our answer needs to be that negative 26 feet. A positive does not work because a positive 26 feet would say he went up out of the water, and that is not what he did. That's why we need a negative. Some more quick examples. I'll just do the top 3. I might even do them all here in the video. We'll see. Just go by quick. If you got it, concept, then you can just copy the top 3 and we move on. It's, again, extra practice. Whenever we see subtraction, we say, don't subtract. Did you say add the opposite? If not, we got to do that. Don't subtract, add the opposite. Sneak it on in. A positive 4 plus a negative 7. The negative 7 has a larger absolute value by 3. Please note, this is what you need to do on your assignment. All of this needs to be in your notebook. For me, Mr. Walls, you have to put down that original problem and then write it in, and then give me the answer. Don't just make -3 magically appear. Moving across to the right. Oh no, there is more subtraction. Whenever we see subtraction, we say don't subtract, add the opposite. They're both positive. That gives us 13. When you're looking at number 10, again, ignore this guy. That's a negative. However, that's subtraction. We say don't subtract. Hope you said it. Add the opposite. The 7 has a larger absolute value. There's one more. The 7 is positive. And again, going by quickly here, doing some examples. -2 minus 3. Again, don't subtract. Add the opposite because the correct answer is a -5. And that's why we switch it to adding the opposite, because we can get those. 5 minus 8, don't subtract, add the opposite. Even if you can get that, it's always helpful to switch it to adding the opposite. When you take a look at -4 minus 6, again, so many times that negative and that subtraction can get confusing. So that's why we're going to leave this negative alone. And this subtraction, instead of trying to figure that out with tiles and everything, we're going to say don't subtract, add the opposite. Because a -4 minus 6 is the same thing as -4 plus a -6. And the only correct answer is a -10. We're doing this again because we want to be able to subtract rational numbers, and that's the goal today, that you can say I can subtract rational numbers, even though with subtraction we say don't subtract, add the opposite.